welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Dr. Nancy V. Brown. She is a Vice President for SEDFOP Inc. And Dr. Nancy, it's really a pleasure to have you on today.
Such an honor to be here with you this morning, Mr. Errol. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone.
Good
Can't
morning.
wait to see you. Yes.
Yeah, well, Dr. Nancy, one thing that I am really concerned about, and you probably was following the news, and is this young lady who got beaten to death by what they call moral police in Iran, simply because she wasn't wearing a headpiece. This is weird. This is the 21st century, and I still can't understand why it is that folks in some Mideastern countries still trapped in this religious concept and traditional style of doing things. Would you care to air your opinion about these matters right now?
That news that we recently heard has been really difficult. I think also one of the hardest things about this news is that this is something that has been going on for centuries. Okay, this is something that has been going on. This is something that's still going on, and this is something that we're just kind of starting to get a little information about. The more we listen and the more we're learning about it, especially as, coming out of the pandemic and coming out of, the high numbers of suicide and cancer and illness and depression. I was hoping that countries would really look to restructure some things. And, some things, there's so many rapings and murders going on and such high level crimes that I was hoping that things like not wearing the head covering on properly or wearing, I heard different news. Some places said she was wearing tight trousers, which is really tight pants with a long shirt covering, but the pants were too tight. Some places were saying that she didn't have her covering on right, but she was coming from one place to another and coming into a different town, a different city, not knowing the laws and the rules there. I would hope that they give people warnings, and not be so harsh. It's been hard learning about this case. It's been a
Well,
hard.
well, I really want to get to the root of this because here's the reality. This isn't something that just started yesterday or a week ago. This has been going on for thousands of years. And the reality is that if women during that period of time had looked up to men as the chief head and the leader and what they say goes, we live in a democratic world. It should be a free society. Who gives a man the authority and right to govern a woman and say, well, your pants is too tight, your skirt is too loose, your headpiece you are not wearing, you deserve to be beaten or thrown into death? What kind of women we are producing in this time and season, rather than living a free life that they can set an atmosphere that's conducive for socioeconomic development and other moral concepts in life? Who gives man the authority, really, to make these kind of judgments, what a woman should wear and not wear? What kind of mental torture is that? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, it's really difficult because I think even in America, we're seeing some of those, we're having some of those same battles as we talked about different cases, different laws that we're standing up for as women. But this is a different country, and they've had these laws and these rules in effect before our time. Like I said, there's so much going on in the world right now that I would hope that legislators and lawmakers would come together and start to think that, come on, there's things bigger than that. There are women being raped in that country. Rape is really high. Murder is really high. Suicide is really high internationally. So there are so many bigger issues going on in the world that I would hope that somebody not wearing their covering, and also you have to remember, I share this a lot of times. I used to be a police officer, and I used to work with different people who had little man syndrome. And some people have other issues going on, and they take the law in their own hands and they take it too far and they become abusive with their power. And I think that that's a lot of what we're seeing right now. That situation, that case, this with this young lady was not that serious of a case for her to be beaten to death and then for the case to be covered up, where they were trying to make it look like she went into cardiac arrest and had a heart attack and all types of other stuff. That
Ex-
is,
those are excuses upon excuses. I'll tell you what is really funny. And now you mentioned you're a police officer, and let's take a look at back here in the United States of America.
yeah.
The reality is that on the 8th of August, 1920, just a little over 100 years ago, women would have had their say in terms of voting. It was ratified. Women can now vote. Before then, women was treated like the scum of the earth. Here in this country, right here in the good old United States of America. Now,
Right.
it was said that all men were created equal.
Hmm.
No equality. This is reality that we're dealing with.
Right.
America's supposed to be the pace setters of the world, the forefront of the world. And if we're going to just turn down a 50-year-old law, Roe versus Wade, just one classic example, and women don't have to be protesting all over for their rights. My question is, do women really have rights? Is it just something on written paper that say, well, this is a 1964 Bill of Rights Acts, and this is to protect those who need to be protected and give everyone opportunities and make equality flat across the board, and there's no equal but segregation anymore existing. The Jim Crow laws are all wiped away. When we look at all these practices, is it real? You look from United States, you look to Iran, and it seems that men, and I got to call it the way it really is, it seems like men are not only a bunch of corporate criminals, they're also a bunch of legal cowards. You understand? Women don't get fair treatment in the workplace. You got legislation set, we got rules and regulations set in every day, but is women really free in this country?
It's sad that you say that because it's so true. Unfortunately, you know, when you say, are women really free on paper? I think that on paper, we are not even free on paper, especially as it relates to this Roe versus Wade. On paper, women are really not free. And so it is in the land right now. That's what we're coming together and fighting for. We're fighting for justice. We're fighting for rights. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for respect. We're fighting for equality. We're fighting for unity. I mean, right now, the women are definitely in a fight. So, for men like yourself, there's a lot of men who do support the empowerment and uprising of women. And that's what we're looking for today. We're looking for women to be able to continue to rise up and not be suppressed, oppressed, and abused and murdered ultimately. Because this right here, this case is shedding a different type of light. The women are walking in the streets, they're ripping their head coverings off, and they're burning them, they're cutting their hair. They're so appalled, they're so angry in that country that, I mean, what crime did these people commit, that this woman commit enough to be murdered? And especially, like I said, in their country, when you see this type of abuse against women, you would think that their crime rate is low, their rape rate is low, but they have a very high crime rate, they have a very high rape rate, and they have a very high suicide rate. And so when you look at these things, you would think that they literally have their country so well, so capitalized, so well under control, but they have so many bigger issues going on. And it just looks like you said, some dirty scums taking advantage of their power.
Right.
That's
And,
what it.
yeah, I agree with that because I noted you mentioned the word women fighting for their freedoms. They're fighting for this and they're fighting for that. And I have to notice that we have leading countries of the world, superpowers of the world, countries where have some level of democracy existing in it. And women have to be fighting. I mean, how free then is a country when your citizens have to fight? Is it dictatorial standards set in the midst of democracy and we operate under the column of democracy when in existence are dictatorial standards? And sad to say, these standards are so immoral when it comes to women. And I always, it often nags me when I have to speak about this because I may understand the ancient times when people were so irresponsible and ill-educated. They misconceptualize and misrepresent the word of God. They were living on the law opposed to on the grace by God. And by doing so, they just see things in a biased way, just like the Sadducees and Pharisees, right? But I can't understand why a woman has to be a victim in today's society when she is the life giver, the life sustainer, the same person who gave birth to these same men who are operating like they are some gods. I mean, the hypocrisy is so much in their eyes. They can't even first cast the beam out of theirs to see clearly how to remove the mote out of their fellow man eye. How then should they sit in judgment seat? Do they understand the amount of economic trauma it's going to put on the country for women who has to go through rehabilitation for psychiatric treatment? When they could be doing something more productive with their lives, they have to be worrying about rape and worrying about this and worrying about getting beat. I mean, the penalties that are stacked against our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our niece, our aunts, our grandmothers. Why over 2,000 years they still have to be going through this process? Could you speak some power into life?
You said a mouthful. It's very difficult to know that these women are life givers. A lot of these women are living in situations where they're under a lot of abuse. They are silenced. They don't have a voice. They're taking care of a whole family. They have a lot of children to raise. They're giving life. They're doing all of this. To see that this is still an issue, that if your head is not covered the right way, to see that you don't get a warning on laws with respect and peace. And then these same people are big, big, big religious believers. And so you see them praying a few times a day and pulling out the carpet, and they don't eat meat, they don't eat this, and they don't eat that. And it's kind of, it's not kind of, it's very hypocritical because they're strict in this area, but then they're killers, they're murderers. And I think it definitely sends a very confusing message to the new generation. Like I said, their suicide rate, if you start to do some research, is high. They have a high suicide rate. People want to get the hell out of there. Excuse my French. And these women are definitely tired of the abuse. They're tired of the attacks, and they're ready to go to their next level. And that's why they're out in the streets marching for not just for themselves. They're marching for their daughters. They're marching for their granddaughters. They're marching for their neighbors. And so the women are coming together. I mean, they're cutting their hair. They're in pain. They're wailing. They're crying. They are in pain because they are under severe abuse and attack from the government and from these people who are taking full advantage of the government's power, these men. Not just men. It's some of the women as well
Yes.
are acting in some of this power control in the background, but it's mostly the men. They have the bigger voice in the country.
Great. Can you speak right now a word of promotion, of motivating these young women that are actually stepping up in Iran to set themselves up for success and for human rights? Could you speak to them and say, well, listen, this is your moment to shine. This is your moment, despite of whatever the circumstances may be, stand up for your rights. Empower them right now at this moment. And not only Iran, but here in America, speak that word of empowerment.
Yes, I want to definitely say to those women first to the women in Iran that are standing up, they're cutting their hair, they're pulling up their head coverings. I'm so beyond proud of you all. I know it's a very scary time because they're literally putting their lives on the line, but I see the bigger picture. I see what they're fighting for. So I just want to say that we are so honored, and we definitely take our hats off to you all that are out there fighting and marching for change. Us here, even in America, we're feeling the fight because we have different fights that we're also going through in America. So right now, you guys standing up at that high level is definitely empowering us women here who don't even have that type of level of attack compared to what you're going through. You're empowering us to stand up and to keep pushing forward and to unite. And I think definitely the message is to come united, and united we stand, and united we are stronger. And so thank you for what you're doing, and we will continue to do the same. We'll continue to rise up and fight against some of these unjust laws. Thank you.
Beautiful. And for those men, how would you want to rally those men to get out of this old psychological, traditional concept and perception of how women should be treated, to take their mouth out of women affairs? They're a bunch of wimps. They are cowards. Why
Right.
not support your sister? Why not support your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, your niece, your cousin? I mean, come on now. Speak a word to these men that they can turn away from their stupidity and come to
Yeah.
understand that a woman is independent. She has a
Mhm.
brain just like you do. She's capable of making her own decisions. She don't need a man to be involved in their life to make decisions for them. Could you speak to those men, those ignorant men?
Yeah. Right. And I think you said it all right there. As a mother of three sons, I have one daughter, but I have three sons. I have three stepsons. I would definitely say, how would you feel if that was your mother? A lot of times people don't see the emergency in the situation until it hits home. And what if it was your mother? What if it was your sister? It doesn't become an emergency. It doesn't become an urgency for change until it hits home. But the ones who are creating the chaos, they're just dancing in the chaos because they're not being affected by the chaos. And what I want to say is, this is the time to change. This is affecting the country. This is affecting the nation. This is affecting the world. The suicide rate is going up. People are in pain. This is not the right way to do things. This is not the right way to hold people captive. We have to grow, and we have to heal as a nation, and we need to make some changes. This is the time to make some changes today.
Beautiful. Would you want to say anything to the government in terms of be less involved in women affairs? Um, when Trump said that women should be penalized for taking the lives of unborn kids, without knowing the true atmosphere of what she's experiencing, it could be she could be impregnated from her own father, own brother, cousin, uncle, grandfather, whoever. The child could probably die inside her, and she needs to get rid of it so it don't contaminate her whole body. I mean, think about all these things, right? Why should then someone say, well, look, it's not going to happen? Who's the man to say that? I mean, would you want to speak some life, common sense into these guys' head?
Thank you, Mr. Arrow. One of the things that I like to say is, if you don't have a wound, it's very difficult to make choices regarding a wound. Okay. I think that this is an issue for women to address, just like there are issues for men, and us women kind of stay in the back and kind of support the men. These are issues that are women issues that need to be addressed by women and need to be supported by the men who are lawmakers. But these are not really issues that men could really fight and stand up on and fight against, because these are not men issues. These are, if you haven't been abused, sexually abused. I can speak because I've been there. Thank God I was not impregnated. But if you haven't been through certain things, you can't speak. You need to sit down because the level of abuse is so high, and that's why people are taking women who have been abused. They will kill their children sometimes. They will could kill themselves. They will kill the whole community because they're in pain and they're being forced to do things with their body that they're not rehabilitated and ready for. So these are issues, again, for women, by women, that need to be addressed by women.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, with Dr. Nancy, it was a pleasure having you on. We are at the bottom of the last minute now, and it was really enlightening, educating women to take this stand up to men who are bullying them in both corporate, legal, whatever realm they may be standing in. But stand up for your rights as a woman, be independent and be strong. I want to thank you, Dr. Nancy. And to all those who have been tuning in on Living in the 21st Century, I want to say have a nice day and bye-bye.